For some reason, I was muted. I apologize there. How unprofessional. Horrible way for me to kick off this season. Anyway, everyone, welcome back to Toilets to Titles. I'm so glad I'm doing this show again. This is my second season doing the Toilets to Titles NFL review. It's been rebranded to the NFL show here, Toilets to Titles. Last year was just called the Review Preview, but now it's just called the T2T NFL show. I am your host, Joe, aka Joe Knows. As you can see, my Twitter handle is at JoeJ_Clark. Happy to see everybody here. We got a great start to this season. So many games to get into for week one. I'm dying to talk about it. I am so glad that football's here. It launched correctly the way I love it with college football last week. And who doesn't love college football? If you love football, you got to love college football because that is where the chaos is. And we get to see all this young, exciting talent that we're looking forward to coming into the NFL and to play on our NFL teams and that we can draft in our fantasy leagues. So there's so much fun to watch, and it's just such a great way to kick off the autumn and the football season. It's college football. It's had a great start with a lot of great wins, and now we're going to have a great start to the NFL season. I'm really looking forward to talking about it. But before we get into the nitty gritty, let's go through everything else I got to go through first. Just friendly reminders. Hit the like and subscribe button. Give us that 5-star Apple review if you got 30 seconds to burn. We'd really appreciate it. It really helps us out a lot. So if you could do that, again, hit the like button, subscribe, and especially give us that 5-star Apple review. Greatly appreciate it. Where you can find the show: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean, and Spotify. And Facebook, we have two pages actually: Toilets to Titles, and the other, of course, I should say the other one is When a Family Breaks, which is our Facebook page dedicated to the trading of sports memorabilia. And if you go to patreon.com/Toilets to Titles, you go there, you can learn how you can further support the show. We have different tiers that you can support us at. Each tier brings additional goodies for you, additional benefits, and fantasy advice. So please check it out. We really appreciate any which way you can sponsor us. Also, we have a great website. I'm blocking my own face over here. I have so many graphics up here right now. Let me take this off. Um, but toiletstotitles.com, it has all of our videos, articles, tons of fantasy, NFL, NCAA football, and draft content. Check it out. It has everything. So I'm really proud of that. We've got so many contributors here at Toilets to Titles. There's like 16 of us now, maybe 17 of us here. And we contribute in different ways, whether it's articles or videos, or some of us do both. But all of our stuff winds up on the website. Check it out. I'm really, really proud of it. It is awesome. And also, just a friendly reminder, don't forget to set your rosters, folks. Fantasy football season starting tomorrow night with a Thursday night game. Don't forget to set your rosters. So just a friendly reminder. And before we dive into the nuts and bolts, check out Chris's videos. Our number one supporter, Chris's videos. How's it going, man? And he's got a question. Is the team doing fantasy football advice, or is that on Sunday? That's Sunday morning, actually, Chris. Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is most of our fantasy football advice. A lot of it's like waiver stuff, guys you can pick up. But quite any questions you have, Chris, or anyone else out there, as to if you're caught, as to if you're unsure as to who to start, who to sit. Like me myself, I've got a bit of a quandary myself with on one of my fantasy teams. I've got Damian Pierce, RB number one over in Houston Texans, and I also have Ramondre Stevenson. So that's kind of a tough call. So I've been throwing that question around. I've gotten some different answers, whether it's Stevenson or Pierce, and I probably won't make a decision on that until Sunday morning anyway. So I've gotten some advice from a bunch of the guys here at Toilets and Titles, but ultimately I got to make that decision. But just putting the feelers out, testing the waters, seeing what everyone else is saying. But Chris, Sunday morning, Jerry Bagshot, he's saying Stevenson. Right now it's kind of like 50-50. I think I may go Ramondre Stevenson just because, I kind of trust the Patriots offense, I guess, a little more, even though they don't have Josh McDaniels anymore. But, Houston, they got some promise. They have some promise down there in their offense, but And I am really intrigued by Damian Pierce. I liked him a lot coming out of college. I really liked him a lot, and I thought he should be the RB1 for Houston going into the season. So, but it's gonna be close. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do there. Anyway, let's get into. I am gonna do picks for the games at the end of the show after I just go through the schedule for week one. I am gonna give my picks, and that is gonna be picks with the spread and straight up. I guess most people don't really care about straight up, but I do. I like giving that pick anyway. And I'll tell you, I had a very good record last year, both with the spreads and uh, and straight up. So we'll see. I think I was like maybe 30 games above 500 both ways. So we'll see if I can duplicate that this year. But anyway, let's get into our schedule. So I want to talk about these matchups. We got some. The NFL did us right, everyone. They did us right. They first game of the season for 2022, Buffalo Bills at LA Rams. This is a possible Super Bowl matchup, assuming everyone stays healthy, no crazy injuries. But you've got the Buffalo Bills, who easily could have won to the Super Bowl last year visiting. They're going to the defending Super Bowl champions, the LA Rams. This is a great game, man. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to this. Um, and this could definitely, like I said, this could definitely be a Super Bowl preview, and it just has that feeling, doesn't it? Doesn't it have that feeling that it's like that it could be Buffalo's year? I mean, you could say that about the Rams repeating, or maybe the Buccaneers going back, or maybe even the Raiders. The Raiders are like a fully stocked team now, especially that they have Devontae Adams, they have Josh McDaniels as their head coach. Should be calling good plays over there, and there's a bunch of other teams you can envision the Chargers that you can envision going to the Super Bowl. But man, Buffalo, it feels like it's their year. And barring any crazy injuries, especially to Josh Allen, who doesn't seem to get injured as far as I can tell, I think this is Buffalo's year, especially someone I really have an eye on. And I don't know what he's going to do in the beginning of the season, but Buffalo drafted a running back this year, James Cook, I believe it is. He's actually the younger brother of Dalvin Cook. And most people project him to be more of like maybe like a third down type of back, a guy you can throw the ball to out of the backfield, and but he's actually got a pretty good size. I think, in my opinion, I think Cook at some point, not necessarily tomorrow, but I do want to see how he performs tomorrow. But I think James Cook is going to take over RB1 duties for Buffalo at some point this season. I think he is the most talented running back on the team. Singletary is a really good weapon. He's a really good weapon, but he's not someone ideally who's going to be like a three-down running back. Third down, sure, he's got he can run the ball, and obviously he can catch the ball in the receiving game. He's good that way. He's a good weapon, Singletary. But I think Cook is also good out of the backfield receiving the ball, and I think he's a better running back. I think he can actually pick up that hard yardage. I don't think he gets the credit for that. And I'm actually higher on Cook than I think most other people are. I do think he can be RB1 at some point this season. I do think he will take over those responsibilities. And that will bring an important element to Buffalo's game that I think has been lacking for a long time. There's some, I think their running game wasn't good enough over the past few years. And I think with Cook, I think it may be. It may be something, Cook may be a part, an ingredient that helps get Buffalo over that hump and into the Super Bowl. I'm not saying he's going to be, the stir that straws, the straw that stirs the drink. I always get that mixed up. I'm not saying Cook is going to be the straw that stirs the drink, but I think he could be a missing ingredient that does really help get them to the Super Bowl, and that is better adequacy in the running game. I think Buffalo needs that. But you saw how obviously they have Diggs, who's a legit wide receiver one. You've got Gabriel Davis, who came on like an absolute monster last year, especially in the playoffs. That guy showed up big time, especially in that final game against Kansas City, which may have been the greatest game ever played, or at least the greatest fourth quarter ever played. And then obviously you've got Josh Allen, Singletary is a good weapon as well, and you got Dawson Knox, who I believe just got a nice big fat extension. The tight end, he had a really good year last year, so they're cooking. And Buffalo's got a really good defense. They're known for the secondary, but I'll tell you, Buffalo for the past few years has been investing heavily in young talent in their front seven, especially along their front four. They've been drafting in back end of the first round and in the second round over the past like 2 or 3 years. They've been investing heavily in young talent, good young talent over there, and I think that line might be ready to take off. I think they may have the experience and the time playing together to actually take off and be a real force in the trenches and getting to opposing quarterbacks. So Buffalo is a really good team. I think this may be their year. I think this is the year they go to the Super Bowl and they win it. And that's not a stretch, obviously. I'm not going out on a limb here, but I really gotta pound the drum for Buffalo because I think they're just looking so good. They really are. So, but that is a great way to kick off the season. Before I get into the um, next game, yeah, Jerry, going back to my quandary between starting Ramondre Stevenson or Damian Pierce in my flex in one of my leagues, Jerry, says to do Stevenson, go with Stevenson, and bad game. He says, yeah, bad game for Houston running backs. It is. It is. That's why I probably will go with Ramondre Stevenson. But Jerry, you know what? I'm sure just like me, most of us, we crap our pants when it comes to, Patriots running backs because you never know what Belichick is going to do. So, but yeah, that is a tough game. I think they're playing the Colts, right? And we'll get to that a little later, but that probably is going to be the deciding factor. Let's go Bills, man. Jerry's saying let's go Bills. Is Stafford going to have a nagging shoulder injury all year? You know what? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't. And if anything's going to prevent the Rams from repeating in terms of at least going back to the Super Bowl, and I don't think they're a lock. I don't think. I think the Rams were a very good team last year, deserving of being the champions, and I think they obviously are worthy of being in that conversation again. But I don't think there's some lock. I don't think the Rams are some lock to repeat to either win or even go back to the Super Bowl. But man, if Stafford is if there's some nagging shoulder injury there with him, then and I know that's been a question this preseason. I just don't know. I just don't know. We'll see how it goes. But obviously they're in a lot of trouble if that does rear its head. And Justin's popping and says sorry again, Joey. Hey Justin, man, I'm sure Justin's all excited like the rest of us for this NFL season. Good to see you, Justin. And Terry McLaurin or Allen Robinson too. You know what? I'll tell you what, Chris. Me myself, I'd go with Terry because he is the wide receiver one over in Washington, and I don't care what people say about Carson Wentz. I know he's not 2019 Carson Wentz or whatever that year was he had that he was basically either got the MVP or he was in the conversation for MVP that year. Carson Wentz, he is better. He's the best quarterback that Washington's had in a very long time, and he's going to be much better for that receiving core. And I think McLaurin is the number one out there. And I think Carson Wentz is going to be a big help for him. Allen Robinson, I'm glad to see he's on the Rams. He's going to a team that knows what it's doing. He's surrounded by super talent. Look at OBJ last year. I think the same thing's pretty much going to happen with Allen Robinson. Even listen, I don't think Allen Robinson is anywhere near the talent of OBJ. I do think that Allen Robinson has been his talent expectations have been blown out of proportion by many people for a long time. And that's not just because he played on a bad team in Chicago. I don't think Allen Robinson is as highly touted as everyone ever made him out to be. But if he's going to succeed, and I think he will, he's going to do it in LA with Stafford and McVay as his head coach and surrounded by that other talent as well. But in this choice, me myself, I'd go with McLaurin. He's the clear number one wide receiver in Washington. Allen Robinson, not bad. If I had to roll with Allen Robinson, I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with that. He's a clear cut number two. He's a clear cut number two wide receiver in LA right now. I believe Van Jefferson is out this week, and I'm not a Van Jefferson guy anyway. But I'd go with McLaurin. I would. McVay said zero restrictions. It's an elbow injury, and so it's an elbow injury, I guess, for Stafford. And Justin saying zero restrictions. That's what McVay said. So I guess on Stafford. So yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that Justin. I've heard that same thing like zero restrictions on Stafford. But Jerry brings up a good point. Like zero restrictions, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on. We'll see what happens. And no hesitation. Yeah. Um, uh, I do see a good year for Cup, me too, but we're not going to come close to repeating what he did last year. Yeah, Jerry, you might not be wrong. In my eyes, I mean, I love Cup. How can you not love Cup? The guy is just friggin' awesome. He's like kind of like OBJ talent when OBJ was younger and at least a little more healthier. He was like OBJ, but he stays healthy. He's on the field. Cup is just awesome to watch. He really is, and he is going to have a big year. And it's hard to duplicate a year like that. But you know what, Jerry, I do think it's gonna be pretty damn close. And I love the dude. I really do. Chris says I have Cup, Stafford, and Allen. Hey man, that's a nice stack, Chris. Talk about stacking your players, huh? From the same team. That's a really nice stack, dude. It really is. Cup, Stafford, and Allen. You're looking pretty good, Chris. You're looking pretty good. I'll tell you, if anyone's not aware, Chris's videos is pretty much our number one follower here at Toss the Titles, and he's young. He's a kid. He's like a you say like sounds like a young teen. And Chris did a lot of mock drafts with us back in the spring, like April, actually like February, March, and early April before the draft. And we had Chris do a lot of his own drafts with us. And I'll tell you, he drafted really well. So Chris's videos knows his stuff. And we were all super impressed with the way he drafted. They were mock NFL drafts. So he was drafting for, he often picked the Chiefs he was mocking for. But Chris was getting great value at each round. We're all impressed with Chris. So great job for Chris. Chris knows his stuff. And Chris would be pretty interesting to go up against in fantasy football because this kid knows his stuff. Allen Robinson, yeah, I got you, man. I got you. Rams, I like that stack, Chris. That's a great stack, man. Cup, Stafford, and Allen. I like it. If they're all on the same team, that's an interesting stack, man. Really cool. Anyway, let's get back to the next game. Okay, so what do we got going on over here? We got the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons, two teams in transition. Somewhat, I mean, to different degrees. New Orleans, obviously, we're beyond Drew Brees. This is the second year now without Drew Brees. Moving on to Jameis Winston. I do like Jameis. I think he's a pretty good NFL quarterback. I don't think I think he's definitely better than a backup. I do think he's better I do think he's a starting caliber NFL quarterback. And I do think you're always going to have to take the bad with the really ugly with the really beautiful. Jameis, like the dude he's got an arm. He's an aggressive quarterback, which I like to see. But I think you're always going to have the interceptions, even though he's playing in a different system. And he's had some time sitting on the bench for the past few years to see how like Drew Brees did it. And then, he had Sean Payton as his head coach for a little while there. And that's good, because you can get a different perspective. And I think it's kind of in his situation, it's kind of good to sit for like a year or two on the bench, just be the backup. I think it's only going to help him. I do think the interceptions are always going to be there. Maybe not to the degree that they used to be when he was at Tampa Bay, but he threw the ball a lot when he was in Tampa Bay. And I expect the same with New Orleans. He does have better talent in New Orleans now, in my opinion. Well, Michael Thomas isn't really, I don't know if he's really around or his head's not really in the game, but I think he's got kind of like better talent now in New Orleans than he had when he was in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's got more talent now with during these Brady years. But he had good talent. Don't get me wrong. Jameis Winston had good talent in Tampa Bay. It wasn't He had weapons. Don't get me wrong. But when you got a player like Alvin Kamara, who's just such a difference maker, I just love seeing that. And I do think I love Olave. I thought Olave was, it's funny. Like 2 years ago, the wide receiver everyone was talking about coming into last year's draft was Chris Olave. That was like 2 years ago. The draft comes and he's like really on big boards. He might have been like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 in some cases in last year's class. And New Orleans traded up in the first round. They traded with Philadelphia. They traded next year's first round with Philadelphia before the draft, and they essentially moved up and they got Chris Olave early in the draft. I think it might have been like pick 13 or something like that. So somewhere I think in the mid-teens, and they got their guy that they obviously targeted. And I like Chris Olave a lot. I think he's going to do very well in New Orleans. I do think Olave is going to have an impact this rookie year, especially if Michael Thomas. I don't know. I think the guy is on the roster. I know he's on the roster, but I believe he's going to be playing this week, and I don't follow Michael Thomas anymore. He is not on my radar for fantasy relevancy. I don't want him stashed. I don't want anything to do with that dude. Players like that just scare the crap out of me. I'm done with Michael Thomas. Um, but if he's really not playing, we'll see what he does. I just don't trust the guy. Um, then Olave is going to get even more snaps, and I think he's going to develop very quickly. I think Olave is going to have a really good NFL career, and it's going to start at some point this year. Maybe not game one, maybe not game two, but I think Olave is going to have a really good year this year as a rookie, and he's just going to get better as the season goes along. Anytime you have Kamara, you're dangerous because Kamara is just such a dangerous weapon. He makes everyone better. And New Orleans, they still have that really good defense. I believe they still have Ingram there, as the RB2 behind Kamara. So that's a nice 1-2 punch. And they're going against a team that I think is rebuilding very well in the Atlanta Falcons. They're really getting a lot of talent on offense. Last year they got Pitts. This year they drafted Drake London in the first round, who is considered by many to be the wide receiver one in this draft. So he's exciting. They also drafted Tyler Algier. I always forget how to pronounce his name. A running back that I was pretty high on coming into this draft. They drafted him as well, and they've got Marcus Mariota, who came from the same class, drafted the same year as Jameis Winston. And as a matter of fact, those two played each other. They played each other in the national championship game, like what, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, something like that. And Jameis Winston and Florida State wound up winning. They demolished Oregon and Marcus Mariota, as far as I recall. But I believe Mariota is going to be starting this game, I believe. And then, but they do have Desmond Ritter, and I would check. I'm not sure about this. Check before the New Orleans Falcons game, the Saints Falcons game. Check it out first. I do believe Mariota is going to be starting at first, and it makes sense. He should. Um, I'm not nearly as high on Mariota resuscitating his NFL career as I am Jameis Winston, but I'm glad to see Mariota get some starts again, and I think he can be somewhat relevant. And but really, you want to see Desmond Ritter at some point this year, and he could be a really interesting. He could be a steal for them. I think they got Ritter in the third round this year, the Falcons. So hopefully, he does wind up being the starter at some point this year. When the head coach feels that when the head coach feels that he's ready. But New Orleans, I should say, Atlanta has some young talent there that a lot of us, especially a lot of us who are into fantasy football, we're really looking forward to how they develop. So I'm really those are the things I'm looking out for in that game. Is I want to see Olave, I want to see Algier or Algier, however his name is pronounced, Tyler Algier. If he can perform well at at running back, and Cordarrelle Patterson still he had that great year last year, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Patterson, at running back, and Algier, whatever his name is. And but I'm definitely dying to see Olave. I want to see Pitts continue to develop. He had a very good year last year as a receiving tight end on a bad team. I mean, he had Matt Ryan thrown to him, so that's great. Matt Ryan's still a very respectable veteran who still has some moxie and talent. So that definitely helped Pitts a lot. And we'll see how playing with Mariota and maybe Ritter later on, how that does for Pitts. But Pitts is the real deal, man. He had a really good year last year, and he was a rookie tight end too. So coming out of first year rookies, it's not easy for anyone. It's not easy for anyone. And but Pitts did very very well last year. So Atlanta, I like the way they're rebuilding. I really like the way they're rebuilding a lot. And let me check out the comments here. That's right, baby. Joe knows. Coach Johnny Chefs is checking in. That's right, baby. First episode of a new season. Feels so good to be back in the cockpit. Jarvis Landry could lead the wide receiver in targets. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I always kind of forget about Landry to me, and that's nothing against Landry, Jerry. I always kind of forget about him. Yeah, I just find him to be kind of forgettable. But you're right. He's a respectful NFL player, receiver. He always has been. But you're right. He could lead wide receivers in targets. Yeah, absolutely right. Jerry says, but game wise, I think they beat the Falcons. Yeah, so he was talking about. So Jerry said with regarding the Saints Falcons, Saints with that good defense should I guess rely on Kamara, although Kamara is so much better when they limit his touches like they used to. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. We'll see what they do with Kamara. I just me myself, my Jerry, my mantra is believe in Kamara. Believe in Kamara. However they're going to use that guy, believe in Kamara. He gets the job done, man. He gets the job done. But they definitely don't want to use him as Derrick Henry. That's for sure. And then Jerry was adding, but he thinks that they beat the Falcons. Yeah, I think so too. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons make it a pretty good game now. I wouldn't be surprised. And we'll get to my picks later, but that might wind up being a little closer than people think. Um, and let's move on to the next game, guys. All right, so 49ers at the Bills. All right, two teams definitely, in different situations. 49ers, these are some serious Super Bowl contenders here. I believe Trey Lance is a starter. I feel stupid now because this is one thing I should know is Trey Lance because everyone's so hot on him, whether or not he's going to start. I don't have Trey Lance anywhere in my fantasy team, so I don't believe in him just yet. I'm not saying I don't. I think his ceiling is pretty damn high, and I'm very intrigued to see how Trey Lance does. But I didn't touch him in fantasy, so I really wasn't paying too much attention to him. I believe he's been named the starting quarterback, even though they retained they retained Garoppolo. I believe Trey Lance is the starting quarterback. Don't quote me on that. Check before the Sunday games start. Before you set your rosters, it could be Garoppolo. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they want to ease Trey Lance in some point this year. But I believe Lance is starting. So everyone, all eyes on Trey Lance. If he's starting, I assume he is. Also, I want to see what's happening with the running backs. San Francisco is so their offense is based on their running game. Their running game, that is their offense when San Francisco is on, that is the hardest offense to defend. It really is. It's so tough, and I love it. I love it. I'm a Giants fan. I wish we had that. I love that offense, man. And it's not your traditional running game like running between the tackles for 3.8 yards, and getting first down like every three downs. That is just such a hard running game. And then they're like their RPO, their play action off of the running game. Their makes their passing game so efficient. And Garoppolo is not the most talented quarterback, but he went to a Super Bowl with them. They've been serious playoff contenders for the past few years now, when they haven't had a lot of injuries. And they have a very good defense. It's such a well coached team, and I love watching San Francisco play. I really do. I think they're the hardest offense to defend when they're healthy and they're on their game. They are the hardest offense to defend. So they're going up against the Bears. The Bears have a very young, talented quarterback in Justin Fields, who was drafted 2 seasons ago, and he's the starting quarterback. Let's see how it goes. The Chicago Bears are definitely a team that's rebuilding now. A lot of the pieces that we've been used to seeing on the team for a while, such as like Allen Robinson, are gone. I believe they lost some defenders as well, but it's a team that needed to be rebuilt, and they got I think a really interesting and talented young general manager in Ryan Poles that they signed from Kansas City. He came from the Kansas City Chiefs front office, and he was actually in the running for the Giants as well. And they wound up going with Joe Shane from Buffalo. But I was really intrigued when I read up about Ryan Poles, and honestly, I never even heard of the guy until I heard that he was interviewing for the Giants job, and I was reading up on him, and I listened to some video clips, some interviews with him too. I found Ryan Poles to be very interesting. So, anyway, and Chicago's got so it really curious to see how it goes with Justin Fields. I do think it's going to be a really tough year. It's not a stretch. I think it's going to be a really tough year for Chicago. We'll see what happens with their offensive line. They've got some interesting weapons there. Headlined by Darnell Mooney. And Chris's videos is a huge Chicago's Bears fan, and so I hope he is very excited to see how Justin Fields progresses this year. But I've got good hope in Justin Fields. I think I got good hope for him. They really got to make sure they get an offensive line around that guy and get him weapons, because when you're building up a young quarterback, the only thing that matters is that quarterback. It's not the defense. It is the quarterback. It is protecting the quarterback, and also giving him an offensive line to protect him, so he's not getting his head caved in, as well as giving him time to be able to read the defense and distribute the ball, and also so they can run the ball. And a good running game is a quarterback's best friend anyway. So when you've got a young quarterback, all focus should be on giving that young quarterback everything he needs in order to develop. Because you don't have that, you could just be ruining careers. You could just be ruining a young quarterback's career. So I think it's kind of tough for him this year because he doesn't have everything that he needs. But I hope they continue to really build around Justin Fields, give him the offensive line. Over time, next year, make it a focus, draft, free agency, give that dude an offensive line, get him some more weapons, and let the offense develop first. I wouldn't worry about the defense. But I think Chicago, San Francisco is a serious Super Bowl contender. Uh, we'll see what happens with Trey Lance, though. So if he's starting most of this year and not Garoppolo, then a lot of it depends on Lance's development. He will be when he's starting. He'll be a first year starter, first time starter, and we just don't know what he's going to do until he does it. So we'll see. But it's interesting. But if Trey Lance is ready, man, San Francisco is a serious Super Bowl contender. Okay, so let's move on. I'm just going to do this game, and I'll get to the comments. I have a few more comments. Pittsburgh Steelers at Cincinnati Bengals. Interesting, because how the tables have turned, right? Or as they said in the office, how the turntables. I love that. That's hilarious. I'm not funny, but that was funny. Anyway, but Pittsburgh Steelers at Cincinnati Bengals. The worm has turned. This game used to be pretty much a joke. I mean, there was like 10 years ago, this was a good rivalry. Cincinnati kind of like really hang tough with Pittsburgh, and then Cincinnati would always shoot themselves in the foot because that's what Cincinnati always used to do. These were like these were like was it Marvin Lewis? Was he the head coach at that time? Since he had some really talented Cincinnati teams, and they'd always shoot themselves in the foot at the wrong moment. And but we are in a different situation now. Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl last year. They deserved everything they got, everything they took. They earned it all, and they just look like a team that's built to be around for a while, especially with their great young elite quarterback in Joe Burrow. And this wide receiving core has got to be, I think, the most talented one in the NFL. Some people think there might be, maybe you could talk about some of the other ones like Minnesota or whoever. I think the best wide receiving core is Cincinnati and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You can't do a better top three than that, in my opinion. And you got Joe Burrow, who is the real deal. He's so cool. I love Joe Burrow. I love him. And Cincinnati's the real deal. Pittsburgh's tough though, man. Pittsburgh still has that tough defense. They've got Najee Harris. They have some weapons on offense. I'm not crazy about their wide receivers. I am crazy. I'm really intrigued to see how George Pickens does. He was their, I think, second round pick this year, I believe, George Pickens for the Steelers. And he may have been. I'm not saying he is, but I'm not saying he is, but don't be surprised if in a few if in a few years, even maybe by the end of this year, George Pickens winds up being the best wide receiver out of that draft class. He's that good. I mean, the guy really he dropped because of injuries and also attitude. He was known to have like attitude problems at college, including I think punching one of the assistant coaches on his team. So, but George Pickens is a super talented wide receiver. Look out for that guy. I actually have him, stored on my bench in like one or two of my leagues. So, but their quarterback, Pittsburgh's quarterback, who's it going to be? I assume Trubisky is going to be starting, and that's fine. That's how it should be. I wouldn't necessarily start Kenny Pickett just yet. You don't have to. There's no need to. Trubisky he's an NFL quarterback. Maybe he's ideally not someone you want starting, but he's legitimate. He's legitimate NFL starting quarterback talent, and I think he's good enough for now. And you don't have to rush Kenny Pickett. But Pittsburgh still has a very good defense, and they still have a great coaching staff, headlined by a great head coach in Mike Tomlin, and they still have talent at wide receivers. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster, who went to Kansas City, but they still have Deontay Johnson, who I know has an injury, but I don't think it's going to be too long term. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, who I think most of us are kind of out down on at this point, but there's still potential there with Chase Claypool, and there's George Pickens. And I'm telling you, watch out for that dude. Watch out for him. As long as he's not getting trouble and punching out his assistant coaches in Pittsburgh, I think George Pickens is going to be a hell of a wide receiver. And you've got Najee Harris, who had a very good year last year as rookie. And, I think he's just going to get better. Pittsburgh does have some issues with their offensive line. They do. So that bears watching. But listen, I do think Cincinnati listen, they're the big brother in this relationship now. They are the big brother in this relationship now. And I think it's going to be like that for the next few years probably. But I'll tell you, if Kenny Pickett comes along and takes off this year's rookie year, when he does eventually become the starter, I assume by some point this year, Pittsburgh could wind up being a lot better than people think. And it's funny when I see, some people sleeping on Pittsburgh or mocking them or knocking them. In my opinion, never count out the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never count them out. Let me get to the comments. All right, what do we got over here? We got all right, let's see. Jerry was tuning in. Kittle is dealing with an injury, I believe, but the 49ers with the coaching staff and talent should win this one. I agree with you, Jerry. You know what? I actually, in regarding Kittle, Jerry, I stayed away from Kittle in all my fantasy teams this year. I love Kittle, but he is older, and at this point, the guy is seriously injury prone. And if I picked him up as like a tight end too, which normally I'm not going to pick up a second tight end, but if I were going to pick up a tight end too, like say he'd fell to me like late in the draft, I'd be cool with it because the potential's still there if he's actually on the field. But yeah, and he has been a huge part of their offense. So that's a good point, Jerry. Good point about Kittle because he has been a really important component of their offense for a long time. So it does bear watching, but I still think they have too much talent. And they're just that head coach knows what he's doing. He really does. He knows what he's doing over in San Francisco. Jerry also says he really likes Cole Kmet to have a good year with a lot of targets. I'm with you, man. I'm with you, Jerry. Between the Bears O line and 49ers D line, Montgomery could get held down a bit. Yeah, I agree with you. And I like Montgomery a lot, but man, the 49ers defense is legit. That's legit. And the Bears have they're like my Giants, like the offensive line, like, ooh, it's scary. And when you're going up against defense like the 49ers, and the Giants are going up against a defense in Tennessee, they've got a really great front seven. That's not easy. That's not easy. So I agree with you. Listen, I think it's gonna be a tough year for the Bears. I do, but I do like Montgomery as a weapon. But man, you're going up against San Francisco. That's tough. That's tough. And Elijah Mitchell or TDP. Who is TDP? Who is Nino Brown? Nino, my man. Downtown Nino Brown. Elijah Mitchell or TDP? Who is TDP? Who is that? Let me know. Let me know. Come back and let me know, my friend. If you're still watching, let me know. TDP. Who is that? Jerry, Bengals by 7+. I think they are better this year than last year. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they are better. I think thing is, I can never count Pittsburgh out in a matchup, an AFC North matchup. I'd be hard pressed to bet against Pittsburgh when you're talking about a 7-point spread. It's they're not that bad. They still have a really good defense, and they know the Bengals well. And I do think the Bengals are a better team. But man, 7 points in this division, the AFC North, these teams are bruisers. They are bruisers, and they play each other really tough. And it would be hard for me to go with the 7-point spread there. Nino, can Pickens outperform DJ? Um, yeah, I think he can. I think he's better talent. I do. I like Deontay Johnson. Nino, I like Deontay Johnson. I think he's a good, talented NFL wide receiver, and he's definitely fantasy relevant. But I think Pickens has a higher ceiling. Now, is he going to outperform him this year? I don't know. I won't say that. No, I don't. This year, I don't think Pickens is going to outperform Deontay Johnson this year. But I think by the end of the year, I think it's going to be pretty clear that Pickens, if he stays out of trouble, that Pickens is going to be the clear-cut wide receiver one in Pittsburgh going forward. But I don't think he's going to outperform Deontay Johnson this year. Can Fitzpatrick slow down Chase and Higgins? Uh, can Fitzpatrick slow down Chase and Higgins? Um, I think can he slow them down? I think he can. Listen, I think he can be. Yeah, I think he can do the job against them. Is he going to shut them down? No, you're not going to shut down Jamar Chase. You're not going to shut down a wide receiver such as Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, I think Fitzpatrick can handle Higgins. Me myself, I probably have Fitzpatrick um, focus more on Higgins, and then maybe a double up on Jamar Chase. With two other guys. But I'd probably have Fitzpatrick maybe play man against Higgins and then have two guys double chase. But I think Fitzpatrick can. I think he can do admirable against those two guys. And listen, Pittsburgh can get to the quarterback. They can get to the quarterback. So, and Cincinnati has improved their offensive line. They have improved their offensive line. They're not great on paper, but they're better. They're better. But Pittsburgh knows how to get to the quarterback, man. So you got Fitzpatrick out there roaming in the secondary. It's a nice combination to have that pass rush and Minka Fitzpatrick. I thought that was a great trade that Pittsburgh made a few years ago with Miami when they gave up the first round pick to get Fitzpatrick. And Jerry says Pickens becomes the Steelers' number one. Yeah, by the end of the season, Jerry, I agree with you. Like I think Deontay Johnson's going to have better numbers over the course of the season, but I think by the end of the season, I think it's going to be clear cut that George Pickens will be their wide receiver one going forward. Oh, Davis Price. You know what, Nino? I think you and a few other people here at Tell Us the Titles are pretty high on Davis Price, and I'm not there yet. The thing is that, you know what? Any new running back that goes into San Francisco system, everyone should be somewhat high on because they make every running back look good over in San Francisco. They really do. Man, you know, I I got to go with Elijah Mitchell. I got to go with Elijah Mitchell. He's the proven guy. He proved last year that when he's healthy, the dude's a stud, especially in that offense. But Davis Price, yeah, listen. If Elijah Mitchell goes down, I'm very high on Davis Price. But if I'm choosing between the two, I'm going with Elijah Mitchell. But don't worry, make sure you have Davis Price because Elijah Mitchell will be injured multiple times this year, and Davis Price will pay you very well. He'll pay you back. He'll pay you back very well for drafting him and keeping him on the bench. But yeah, I'm going with Elijah Mitchell. But I'd love to have Davis Price as a handcuff. Definitely, that's a good one because Elijah Mitchell will be probably injured like 3 times this year. And so if you have Davis Price as your handcuff, you're looking really good. I actually like Davis Price more as a handcuff than I would what is it, Madison or Matheson over in Minnesota. I'm really not that crazy about that guy, to be honest with you, for a handcuff. I'd actually go Davis Price. I know it sounds crazy because Davis Price isn't proven. Mathis is, or Matheson, that's it, Matheson. Um, but I actually like, I think every running back in San Francisco does very well. When they're given the touches, I think they all do very well. And I believe that Davis Price will as well. It just depends on what's going to happen with Elijah Mitchell. I think you can count on him to be injured like 3 times this year. So who knows? And maybe they'll look to lessen his load a little bit and give Davis Price some more touches. But I like Elijah Mitchell more. Justin Stevens, he has the Steelers going 5-12, and he's excited to see that happen. Justin is a big time Colts fan. He obviously has no love for the Steelers, but you know what? Honestly, they could. They could go 5-12 because you just don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback situation. As high as I am on George Pickens, he is a rookie. This is not the Steelers wide receiver core that we're used to for 20 years when you had like Santonio Holmes and you had Plaxico Burress back in like the early 2000s, Santonio Holmes, and you just had what's his name, Antonio Brown, in the mid 2010s, and they had some great wide receivers. And we don't have that right now. At least maybe you have something like that with George Pickens, just not proven. But listen, Pittsburgh can go 5-12 because the quarterback situation. Roethlisberger was an old man. He needed to retire really 2 seasons ago. But you know what? There's something to be said for that veteran knowledge and experience. Even though he didn't have the arm anymore, there's something to be said for that veteran knowledge and experience. Which Trubisky is a veteran himself, but he never played at that level that he never played at that game level that Roethlisberger did. Um, and also Kenny Pickett's obviously a rookie. So much depends on that quarterback position. It's not going to be the same Steelers team. Listen, if Trubisky has a revival here, Pittsburgh may be better than everyone thinks. I just think they're going to play tough. Pittsburgh always plays tough. I think they'll do better than 5-12. I do. Probably more like 7-10, but it'll be good effort. It'll be good games, and I think they'll have a lot to look forward to next year with if they can develop Kenny Pickett somewhat this year. I think they'll have a lot to look forward to next year. But I listen, dude, Pittsburgh Steelers, that team, they are a team of gamers. They don't lay down for anyone. They always play tough. They're in the most physical division. The AFC West is the most talented division by far this year. We can all agree on that. But the AFC North has always been for a very long time just the most physical division in football. And Pittsburgh is going to be when they're not being physical with their divisional rivals, they'll be taking that physicality against other teams from outside the division who aren't used to it, and it's tough to go up against that. So I would just never count out the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they're going to the playoffs, but don't count them out really out of any game because they're just a tough team and they're really really well coached. Okay, so let's move on here, guys. Philadelphia Eagles at Detroit Lions. Philadelphia Eagles. Here's another team that can be Super Bowl contenders. I guess a lot of it depends on the development of the quarterback, and we'll see. I'm not convinced that he is going to improve on his passing. Um, I think a lot of quarterbacks can. I think there's kind of a misconception out there that in terms of accuracy, you are who you are and you can't improve your accuracy. Actually, you can. Many quarterbacks do. They actually get more accurate in the NFL than they were in college football. But with the Eagles quarterback, I don't know. He looked actually pretty damn inaccurate last year. The limited times that I saw him, I thought maybe I remember reading about him. I remember reading about Jalen Hurts last year's performances, leading up to I think the second game against the Giants. Because I'm a Giants fan, I watched that game, and people were saying how inaccurate he was, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just not him. Maybe it's just like the wide receivers not running the right route. Like a lot of times there are reasons for why quarterbacks, also miss the targets. It's not always the quarterback's fault. Man, I saw that second game against the Giants. He had some passes that were just, I don't know where they were going. There was like no one in the area at all. And it wasn't just one. So we'll see. But listen, the guy's got a hell of an arm. Jalen Hurts he does have a strong arm, and he is a heck of an athlete. But he does need to develop as a quarterback. And he's got AJ Brown now. AJ Brown, that's going to help out a lot. I have never forgotten about Devontae Smith. I am a firm believer in Devontae Smith. I think last year Devontae Smith I guess didn't put up the year that most people were expecting. But again, he was a rookie. But also Jalen Hurts has got developing to do himself. So me myself, I full on believe in Devontae Smith. I do think Devontae Smith is going to have a really big year this year. And AJ Brown, that dude needs to stay on the field. He needs to stay on the field. He's if he's healthy, AJ Brown is probably like a top five at worst. I think top seven wide receiver in the league. If he's healthy, top five, maybe top four, but definitely top five, top seven, definitely. But that guy needs to stay healthy. I have always, up until this year, I always used to get him on my fantasy teams as often as I could, and the dude is always injured. It's scary how injured that guy always is. So we'll see. I thought it was a great trade that Philadelphia made, and that adds a great weapon to Philadelphia, their arsenal. They've got a pretty talented running back core too. I'm not crazy about Miles Sanders. I'm seriously out on Miles Sanders. I don't believe in that guy at all. But I still think they have some other pretty good running backs. They have a pretty good offensive line, and they've got they got a talented wide receiving core. And like I said, Jalen Hurts can elevate his passing game, and I think he can. I think he can. Then this Eagles team is going to be for real. That defense is going to be for real. The Eagles just had an excellent, yet another excellent draft. They really did, and that defense is going to be legit. They also seriously they improved every single line on their defense. They got that. I forgot his name. They got that absolute monster beast, a defensive tackle in the first round. I forgot his name. The dude is a monster. He's going to be a force of nature to deal with. He's going to be plugging up the middle of their defensive line. They also got the linebacker. Who was the name of the linebacker that fell from Georgia? That they wound up getting in the third round. Dude should have been like a first round talent, but then there are all these injuries that came that reared their head right before the draft. They got him, I think, in the third round, a third round steal, and then they got James Bradbury as a free agent to play, to play cornerback. So they improved. Philadelphia improved every single line of their defense. They're going to be a seriously tough team, Philadelphia. I'm not. I'm not picking them to go to the Super Bowl. I still think, Hurts has got a little ways to go. And I think that's what's going to hold them back, if anything, because that is a really talented team. I'll tell you, Philadelphia's got a really impressive front office. Those guys know what they're doing. They really do. They really kind of rebuilt that team on the fly over the past few years, and they did a great job. And they've got two first round picks again this year coming up in the next draft, 2023. So if they need a quarterback, they could probably make a move to get it, to get that quarterback. They're going to have yet again, they're going to have two first round picks this year, Philadelphia. I'm really impressed with how that front office operates. I'm so jealous. They're so really good. And anyway, but Philadelphia is going to be a tough team. But a lot of it's going to rest on the development of Jalen Hurts. It really does. Um, but even if he plays like last year, they're going to be a good team. They were a good team last year. They're going to be even better this year because the team is better throughout. With AJ Brown, the way they've improved their defense, they are a better team. But still, I think in order to get to the Super Bowl, I think Hurts has got to show a lot of improvement in his passing this year. But he can do it. He can do it. He can do it. Detroit Lions. I like the way they're building. I like their head coach. They've got a lot of good weapons. Got a lot of good young guys. They've got Aiden Hutchinson, that defensive end, who they got. Pick number 2 in the first round this year. They had Amon-Ra St. Brown. They also got Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, the wide receiver from Alabama. Really talented guy. They got him as well. So they're loading up. Detroit is loading up. I like the way they're building a lot, and they're getting physical. The Detroit Lions are building like they've never been built before. They are building to be a physical team, which reminds me of their head coach. And he seems like a physical guy. I like him a lot. But Detroit, they're building them to be physical in the trenches, and I like that. Detroit needs to be physical. They've never been that type of team before. Never. I'm glad they're fine. I'm glad they have a front office and a head coach that's finally doing that. So I like the way Detroit's building, but I think Philadelphia is me way too much for them. New England Patriots at Miami Dolphins. The worm is turning here too. Same thing with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. It looks like Miami Dolphins are probably going to be, the big brothers now. I believe their time is coming. This is a team that is, just more and more stacked in talent on both sides of the ball. But obviously, anytime you can get Tyreek Hill as your wide receiver one. Holy cow! Because I do think he's the best wide receiver in the league. I know everyone else would disagree with me. Um, it's nothing against Jamar Chase, nothing against Justin Jefferson. Me myself, I would take Tyreek Hill over all of them, except for maybe Cooper Cup. Those are those two guys like Cup and Tyreek Hill are more my types of wide receivers. But anyway, whatever. If you have Tyreek Hill at number five, number six wide receiver, it doesn't matter. He's an incredible talent. Miami did a great job at getting Tyreek Hill. That was awesome. We'll see how it goes with their other wide receivers, who I'm really really high on. And but a lot of it comes down to Tua. What's going to happen to Tua. I think I still have some hope in Tua. I do think there's a definitive ceiling there with Tua that is not great. Where he can be good, he can be pretty good, kind of like a Carson Palmer was. Not Carson Palmer. Um, who was a redheaded quarterback that Cincinnati had for a while? He's now like the backup, I think maybe in Dallas somewhere. But God, Andy Dalton. I think Tua is gonna be more like an Andy Dalton type level quarterback. I think his ceiling is like that. I don't think he's ever gonna be even close to being an elite quarterback, Tua. But I think Tua could wind up being a legit serviceable quarterback. And people laugh about Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton was a fine quarterback. He was a good quarterback. He just played on a team of knuckleheads. I mean, he wasn't the most talented player on the Cincinnati Bengals for like the 10 years that he was the quarterback there. He played on some really talented teams, but he also played with a bunch of knuckleheads who shot themselves in the foot all the time. And Andy Dalton had the Cincinnati Bengals often either in the playoffs or in the playoff conversation. But a lot of times those teams just shot themselves in the foot. So Andy Dalton was a very competent, NFL competent quarterback. And I think Tua can be that. I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback, but I think Tua can be good enough that you don't really have to worry about him. And he's going to want to leave you wanting more. I think he's going to leave you wanting more. But I do think that Tua can be a really a competent quarterback, and you can feel comfortable rolling him out every week. But I don't think he's going to be elite. But I think Miami, I think they're ready, man. They're ready to take the next step forward, and they're not going to be better than Buffalo, but I think they can be a playoff team. I think they can be a playoff team. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jalen Waddle, and I want to see how he does, especially teamed up with Tyreek Hill. So he's definitely one of the top young second year players that I've got my eye on, and that is Jalen Waddle because I loved him in last year's draft. Loved that guy. And I think him and Tyreek Hill together, that is going to be crazy. And they've got their new head coach, who's the old offensive coordinator for the 49ers. So this is going to be a wild time in Miami. Miami could wind up being the sexy place, the sexy NFL team to watch and play for again. And like it hasn't been since like the Dan Marino days. Miami could wind up being the sexiest team to watch these days. If Tua is coming along and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, if they're on the field at the same time, good lord, man, that could be some must-watch NFL TV. Miami Dolphin games. We'll see how it goes. New England Patriots, they're lacking a lot of talent. Mac Jones, second-year quarterback, he had a good first year. Let's see how it goes. He no longer has his offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels is now the head coach for the Raiders, I believe, and so we'll see how it goes. But Patriots, it's going to be probably a tough year. It's going to be a tough year. They're going to need some. They're going to need a lot of talent. They need like a big makeover there. So, but you know what? One thing, and I'll say this, and I'll always ride this until he retires, but never give up on Bill Belichick. That guy always works some sort of wonder. So he always works his magic. So you can never count out a Bill Belichick New England Patriots team. They're not. They don't look like they have a lot of talent, and they don't. They really look like they don't. But he's Bill Belichick, and you never know what dark magic he's going to work. I'm a full believer in Bill Belichick until he retires. Okay, let me do one more game here, and then I'll get back to the comments. Baltimore Ravens at the New York Jets. So it sounds like the New York Jets. It sounds like Zach Wilson's going to be sitting for the next 4 weeks. I don't know why. I just saw the headline before earlier today, but I had to read the story. But it sounds like he's going to be sitting the first 4 weeks, and Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. It really doesn't matter. Listen, the Jets are building really well. I love the way the Jets are building, but they do need Zach Wilson to play and to develop. And I don't know Zach Wilson. I'm not as high on Zach Wilson as many other people seem to be. I'm not sold. I'm not as sold as that Zach Wilson just given time is automatically going to become a good quarterback. I'm not necessarily buying that with Zach Wilson. I think he can. I'm not counting him out, but I actually have more trust in Justin Fields, and even Trey Lance, who haven't even seen play. I think his ceiling is very, very high. Trey Lance. Zach Wilson, we'll see. Just there's a feeling I have about this guy. I'm just not feeling it with him. I'm telling you, I'm not feeling it with Zach Wilson, but we'll see. But that guy needs to get on the field and needs to play because he needs to develop. Because the Jets can't be going through more years of Mike White and Joe Flacco starting in place of Zach Wilson, what happened quite a bit last year. Zach Wilson missed quite a few starts. He missed a few starts last year. They need Zach Wilson out there playing and developing. Yeah, because they've got some really good weapons, man. They got Elijah Moore last year, who ideally can be a really good wide receiver too, and they got a guy who can be a legit wide receiver one this year in the first round in Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State University. Even though, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Ohio State University talent, how it translates to the NFL. I'm just saying, but he is a legit potential to be a legit wide receiver one, and that is Garrett Wilson. And then also they got Brees Hall, and Brees Hall. I'm very high on Brees Hall. I like him a lot. I wasn't crazy about this running back class overall, but I think Brees Hall probably was. Actually, my Brees Hall wasn't my favorite running back, but I get it. I mean, he probably is the best running back in the draft. My favorite running back was I actually liked Isaiah Spiller and Kenneth Walker more. I just like them more, but Brees Hall is probably the better talent. He probably is, and either way, they got the guy in the second round. I thought it was a great steal. That was a guy who could have easily went like pick number 23 or 24 in the first round, and I wouldn't have blinked an eye. But the Jets moved up. They got him early second round. Great move. Because they need him. They're gonna, they'll, because what's his name, the guy Carter, who they drafted last year, the running back they drafted at UNC. I never felt like he was an RB1, but I think he could be a damn good RB2 and a good change of pace back as well. But Brees Hall could be that three down stud that you feed the ball to if you want to. So I'm really excited about Brees Hall. I am excited about Garrett Wilson, and excited about Elijah Moore. We'll see what happens with Zach, man. If Zach can get on the field and he can start developing the last part of his rookie season last year, last few games, last like 4 or 5 games, he actually played pretty well. I forgot how many touchdowns he had, but I think he had 0 interceptions. So he definitely showed better the last few games last year as opposed to the beginning of the year, which is not strange. I mean, of course he developed. It was his rookie year. The Jets are, and they're getting better on defense too. Jets, they obviously drafted Sauce Gardner. They've added other talent too in the defense. So Jets have a little ways to go, but they're building the right way. They're building the right way. And their offensive line has gotten better too. I know the left tackle, I think he's done for the season with a knee injury, but in other spots in the offensive line, they added some talent. So the Jets are building the right way. I think Joe Douglas is their GM. He's been doing a really, really good job. Kind of not a surprise. He came over from the Philadelphia Eagles front office a few years ago. Philadelphia Eagles know what they do. They know what they're doing, man. They know talent, they know NFL talent, and they know front office talent. The Philadelphia Eagles are doing it right. But I think Joe Douglas, GM for the Jets, is building them the right way. But Zach, you got to get on the damn field, man. You got to get on that field. Baltimore Ravens are going to be the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're going to be physical. They're going to be way too tough for the Jets, I believe. You got Lamar, who's Lamar. I love Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson. I think Rashad Bateman's going to have a big year. I loved that guy last year's draft class, Rashad Bateman. I loved him, and he's a guy who, when he's at his full potential, he should be able to play. You should be able to deploy him at any position, wide receiver position, X, Y, Z. When this guy is, fully knowledgeable in the NFL game, he's got his few years experience. Rashad Bateman, you can deploy at the X, Y, or Z position, and he's going to do very well. He's going to be a nice chess piece for Baltimore's offense. But I do think Rashad Bateman is going to be a legit wide receiver one for Baltimore. I don't think he's ever going to be like a top 10 wide receiver. I don't think he's that type of talent, but I think he could wind up being, when he gets to his best, like a top 12 wide receiver in the NFL. I like Rashad Bateman a lot. He is definitely the most talented wide receiver on that team. So we'll see how it goes. Baltimore is going to be physical. They're going to run the game. They've got their tight ends. They drafted two more tight ends this year. So yep, they got Mark Andrews, who's awesome. They also drafted two other tight ends this year, talented guys. One guy you want to look out for is keep an eye on Isaiah Likely, who they got late in the draft, I believe. I think maybe like the fifth or sixth round out of Coastal Carolina, and Coach Sheps was really high on him. I wasn't as high on him because he played at a small school like Coastal Carolina. But I'll tell you, if you're a tight end and there's one team in the NFL you want to be drafted by as a tight end, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. If you're a tight end, you want to be drafted by the Baltimore Ravens because they love to use their tight ends. So, but keep an eye on Isaiah Likely because listen, Philadelphia, Baltimore is a physical team. The running backs get injured because they play a physical style running game. They use their tight ends a lot, like Mark Andrews. So, these guys are. He's Andrews is a big guy, but he's also going to be getting blasted when he catches the ball. So don't be surprised if there's some injuries with Mark Andrews. And if he goes down, they've got some young tight ends. I forgot the other one that they drafted, Baltimore. But keep an eye on Isaiah Likely because he had a very good spring. He had a very good camp and a very good preseason. And if Andrews goes down, um, I think Baltimore is going to continue to use their tight ends like they always do. And you want to keep an eye on Isaiah Likely. Okay, let's get to the comments. Let's see. Do. Okay, so Jerry, I think this becomes a close game with the Lions being much improved. Eagles win a high scoring game. Love AJ Brown. Yeah, I hear you, man. Jerry's thing going back to the Lions Eagles game. You know what? It could be close, man. The game is in Detroit. It's in Detroit. I want it to be a close game because I'm rooting for the Lions. I'm not a Lions fan, but man, that team has just been had so much crappy bad luck for 50 to 60 years. How can you not root for the Detroit Lions to win? Just to improve and be good. Their fan base really needs it. Dolphins, with that defense takes this one. Pats really have no weapons. I know, yeah, and the Dolphins defense is pretty good, but you know what? I really want to see how that offense performs with Tua and Waddle and Tyreek. Whew. He could see the Pats trying to control the clock and make it ugly. Yeah, Jerry, I agree. I could see that is so Belichick, isn't it? Right? And that's kind of like the only thing they can do. Kind of bring the blitz. Here's the thing. Here's another thing too with that Dolphins Patriots game is Tua is still young and he's still inexperienced, and he hasn't played all that much. He's been so darn injured. Um, Belichick is a nightmare for quarterbacks who are inexperienced, not just rookies. Tua is no longer a rookie, but he still doesn't have that many starts under his belt. Belichick is just a nightmare of a defensive coordinator for against young quarterbacks who haven't really seen too much of the NFL game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick keeps it close. I would still be surprised if they won, because I do think Dolphins are much more talented. But man, I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick keeps it close. Flacco's return just in time for a Ravens win. Well said, Jerry. I like that. Well said. Do you think Flacco is better for Elijah Moore though than Wilson? Yeah, man. Um, you know what? Yeah, Elijah Moore. Let's see him take, irregardless of who the quarterback is and what Wilson does. I want to see Elijah Moore continue to improve. He got better as the season went on, as it went on last year. And he's a rookie, and he got better and better, and that's what you want to see. And I do love Elijah Moore. I definitely never felt like he was a wide receiver one. But when you have a real wide receiver one like Garrett Wilson can be, Elijah Moore can just be such an awesome wide receiver too. Just a devastating wide receiver too. I like him a lot. Jerry says a really late sleeper I like this year is Devin. I think is it Devaney, Devin Devaney should be the Ravens' number two wide receiver and kick returner. Now, is it Devaney or is it Duvernay? Something like that. Isn't Devin a Duvernay? Devin Duvernay? Maybe I'm wrong about that, Jerry. I thought it was Duvernay. Maybe it is Devaney. Maybe I was reading it wrong all along. Maybe it's Devaney, but I thought it was Devernay or Duvernay, something like that. But anyway, I know who you're talking about. A lot of people are talking about him on the Ravens as being the wide receiver too, and I think you're right. I haven't touched the guy in fantasy at all, just because, man, just for a Ravens wide receiver to be relevant, I just want Rashad Bateman to be relevant, and I think Rashad Bateman's ceiling is much higher than Hollywood Brown's ever was. I think Hollywood Brown's actually going to have a better career in Arizona with Kyler Murray. But I still was never all that high in Hollywood Brown. His consistency wasn't there. I think Rashad Bateman can be a much more consistent wide receiver for the Ravens. I think he's that type. I think he's a much better talent than Hollywood Brown. But this guy that you're talking about, yeah, I haven't really looked into him, but you know what? A lot of people are talking about him, Jerry. A lot of people. So, but I get scared by Ravens wide receivers, man, because they're so reliant on Lamar's talent to run, on their running backs who are usually really good and like four-man deep at their running back core, and their tight ends. That's their game. That's their bread and butter. So I get a little worried about their keeping my eye on their wide receiving core for fantasy purposes. I do, but I definitely Rashad Bateman. He's one guy I definitely have my eye on as a wide receiver from the Ravens. But I hear you, Jerry. A lot of people are talking about that guy. A lot of people are talking about him. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so it was misspelled. Okay. Yeah, I think it's Duvernay, right? I think it's Devin Duvernay. But other people, Jerry just brought this up. It's a good point about Devin Duvernay. He's a guy you want to keep your eye on. He's probably going to be the Ravens' number two wide receiver and kick returner, and a lot of people are talking about this guy. You know what? I gotta read up more on him. I haven't really paid attention to him. But you're right, Jerry. You're right. Okay. Move on to the next games, guys. All right, NFL season's here, baby. Yeah, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Washington Commanders. Jacksonville, coming off of a nightmare year with that nightmare head coach of theirs, Urban Meyer. Things should be much better this year. They got a legit head coach, and what's the dude's name? I forgot, but he was the head coach for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. I felt like he was a legit head coach. Things just went bad in Philadelphia. I think with him in the front office. I don't know what it was. I don't pay attention to what's really going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, but I did feel like he was the head coach, and get the sense that there was definitely a disconnect between him and the front office. I think he had a different vision for the team, and I think the general manager had a different vision for the team, and they just had to part ways, and it was kind of ugly when he left. Things had gotten bad in Philadelphia. They turned things around pretty darn quickly, but he's a legit head coach. I think he's going to work wonders for Jacksonville. Let's not forget about Trevor Lawrence, who is widely seen as the generational talent of a quarterback, like the top one since Andrew Luck came out of the draft, and before Andrew Luck, it was Peyton Manning. But Trevor Lawrence is in that line. He was now like that consensus number one elite, can't miss quarterback prospect. Don't discount that with Trevor Lawrence. It's easy to forget about him. It's easy to forget about him because he was in Jacksonville. He was drafted by Jacksonville. They were horrible last year. There was nothing to really watch about Jacksonville. Jacksonville actually has talent. Trevor Lawrence, I fully expect him to have a really good year this year, or at least compared to last year. I expect him to grow. I expect Trevor Lawrence to be fine and to grow. And he's got some good weapons around him. Definitely excited to see how Etienne does. I got myself Etienne in one or two of my own fantasy drafts as my flex. I don't have him as like my number two. I wouldn't do that. Me myself, when I draft, I tend to be depending upon the league, but for the most part, I tend to be running back centric. I like being stacked at the running back position. So I think some other people might have had Etienne as their RB2, but for me, he's my RB3, my flex Etienne, and I felt comfortable with that. But you also have James Robinson as well, and they also signed Evan Ingram too, who don't laugh too much. The guy is actually he was always misused by the Giants. I mean, he's also first of all Ingram. Yeah, he's doesn't have the best hands. He can drop some balls. I think that they got blown out of proportion by my fellow Giants fans. But the guy is a heck of a talent as a receiving tight end. His main problem actually wasn't drops. His main problem was his inability to stay on the field, and he was misused by the Giants head coaches for the past like 5 years. And they had like three head coaches, and no one really used him fully correctly. I think Pat Shermer did, and like the one year that he was kind of healthy for Pat Shermer, but that was it. But uh, the head coach for Jacksonville now likes to use the tight ends, and I think Evan Ingram is a perfect match for Jacksonville. So if you need a tight end, and I know everyone's done their drafts anyway, but I'll tell you what, if Evan Ingram hasn't been drafted in your league, and if your tight end winds up getting injured, uh, keep an eye on Evan Ingram. Don't be surprised if he actually has a nice bounce back year with Jacksonville. As long as he's healthy, He's got a head coach that likes to use the tight ends, and so when he's playing with Trevor Lawrence, I could actually see Evan Ingram having a respectable year. He's not going to be a tight end number three in all of fantasy, but I can see him putting up um, respectable numbers as a tight end with a pretty decent floor. I can see it. Anyway, so I'm excited to see how Jacksonville does. I love me some Trevor Lawrence. I'm always rooting for Trevor Lawrence. I love that guy. And the Washington Commanders, I think, can actually surprise and wind up winning the NFC East. Yeah, if I were going to bet money, I would say the Philadelphia Eagles. But Washington's a pretty well-rounded team, man. They got Carson Wentz, who I think is he's an NFL caliber quarterback. I guess he's not 2019 Carson Wentz, but I think he's a respectable talent, and he's got some talent on this offense to play with. He's got scary Terry McLaurin, and he's got one of my favorite wide receivers out of last year's draft class, Jahan Dotson. I love Jahan Dotson. They call him the vacuum because the guy never drops a damn thing. And I myself, I'm not crazy about how Ohio State talent translates to the NFL. I do like how Penn State talent translates to the NFL. I'm very high on Jahan Dotson, so keep an eye out for him. But I think Washington's got a pretty good defense too. I think they're a well-rounded team, and I think Carson Wentz can actually get them to the playoffs. Washington, I think actually has a legit shot to win the NFC East. But Washington, I'm looking forward to seeing how they do this year. Not against my Giants, but I am looking forward to seeing how they perform this year because they've been building pretty well. Washington, it's like I said, it's a well-rounded team. All right, let's move along over here. Let me go to the next like six, seven, eight games real quickly. I want to get to the picks. Got to wrap it up. It's been going on for an hour and 15 minutes already. Okay, so Cleveland Browns at the Panthers. Cleveland Browns, I'm not crazy about the quarterback situation. I actually have a bad feeling about this team. I love the running game. We got a bad feeling about this team because of the quarterback situation. Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers were looking pretty darn good last year before their injuries started accumulating. Now they've got their running back. They've continued to add to their defense. So defense was looking good last year, and again, they were getting impacted by injuries. But they got McCaffrey back. They've continued to add to their defense, and they have Baker Mayfield, who I'm not crazy about Baker Mayfield, but I think he's going to do fine down in Carolina. I think he'll do good enough at least for now. And I think Carolina is actually going to be a pretty good team. Not a great team, but I think they're building the right way as well. Indianapolis at Houston. I like Indianapolis. I love their talent. That's a very well-rounded team. Houston Texans, they kind of surprised last year. They only had 4 wins, but I think most of us were expecting them to have 1 or 2 wins at most. They got a good young quarterback in Davis Mills. He had a very respectable year last year. Davis Mills, most people felt like he should have actually stayed in college last year and to continue his growth down in college. But he came out in the draft. I think Houston took him in the third round. And you know what? He became the starting quarterback pretty early on in the season. I forgot what week it was, but he played admirably. He got better and better as the season went along. So people are keeping an eye on Davis Mills. I'm happy for Houston. I feel bad for what happened to them over the past few years. Like 2 years ago, that team just got blown up. They just got caved in from the inside. And I'm happy for Houston. It looks like they're building pretty well. They got Lovey Smith there as their head coach. I don't know how he's going to do. I always like Lovey Smith, but the guy's been down in the game for a long time. But he's a great character guy. He's had a lot of success in the NFL as a head coach, and it could be a good match. It could be a good match in Houston. He could be the right person for the job down there, at least for right now. But I think Lovey Smith, I'm glad to see that he's back. He could be just his personality and his experience. It could be a good match for Houston, helping them grow. We'll see. I am concerned because he hasn't been a head coach in a while. But Indianapolis, just a super talented team. They got Matt Ryan, who is better than Carson Wentz. They got Matt Ryan to play for this offense that has so much potential with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, who I admit going into last season I was not that high on, but man, did he prove me wrong. And they got another wide receiver who they drafted this year, who I'm very high on, in Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati. So I like that guy a lot too. But Indianapolis is a really tough, well-rounded team. Okay, my New York Giants and Tennessee Titans. This is going to be ugly. I think the Giants offense may wind up actually playing respectably, respectable. They might actually be respectable. The defense is going to be ugly. Derrick Henry is going to. Tennessee, I'm very concerned about their wide receiving core. Losing AJ Brown, even though the dude was injured all the time. I like the Treylon Burks pick in the first round, but I don't know how this guy is going to do his rookie year, and I think this is really going to hurt them a lot. It's going to really hurt their chances to possibly get to a Super Bowl this year because I do think Tennessee, if they had a legit wide receiver one who could stay healthy, I think Tennessee has the ingredients to seriously contend for a Super Bowl title. And it's not a stretch. I'm not saying anything else that I think many other people believe, but I'm very high in Tennessee. I love their physicality. They're like the Baltimore Ravens. They love to play the run game. Like, that's their bread and butter on offense is the physical run game. Hello, Derrick Henry, my favorite running back in football. That is my type of running back is Derrick Henry. I love that type of physical running game. He's the man. They also have a very good defense in Tennessee. That front seven is very good, and they got a pretty good secondary too. This game's going to get ugly, I think. I'm just hoping to see as a Giants fan. I just want to see the offense be competitive. I am very excited about the Giants' new coaching staff. But so Kadarius Toney, right now he's apparently he's healthy. We'll see if he's healthy within 12 hours because this guy is always injured. Kenny Galladay, I don't know. I'm just excited about. Let's just put it this way. I'm excited to see what this coaching staff does. I want to see what schemes they have, especially in offense. A lot of RPO is my understanding of the Giants' offense. That's what they were. That's what the head coach and the offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, is the OC from Kansas City. This is what they're running. I think it suits Daniel Jones very well. It's what he was running in college. It's pretty much what he was running in his rookie year when he was throwing for a good amount of touchdowns. And so I am excited to see Saquon's back. He's fully healthy. Let's see what he does. But I do think the Giants offense will play pretty well, and I think they'll be respectable. I just want to see this team just look just like an NFL team for the first time in a while. I want them to just look respectable. So, but the defense, the Giants lost a lot of veteran talent on defense. They just lost Blake Martinez, who they cut, James Bradbury, who they cut, who now is now with Philadelphia, Logan Ryan, they cut earlier this year. They lost. They also lost Jabril Peppers as a safety in the offseason. They didn't try to resign him. I think he's in New England now. There's a lot of veteran talent they had that's gone that is really gonna hurt this team. So the defense, I do love that defensive coordinator Wink Martindale who came over from Baltimore. But man, he's got besides Leonard Williams and hopefully Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't even know if Kayvon's going to be playing this weekend. I don't think he is. And Azeez Ojulari, I don't know if he's going to be playing this weekend either. But there's not much talent left on this defense at all. So it's basically Leo Williams and kind of like no one else really. So yeah, I think Kayvon and Azeez are out this weekend. So, but even if they weren't, Kayvon's a rookie. Azeez is a second year player, and I expect him to take a big jump forward. But still, he's a second year player. So it could get really, really ugly. Green Bay Packers at Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, Minnesota Vikings are a well-rounded team. I think they've rebuilt their defense pretty well. Their offense is they have so many weapons. They got a good quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and they have a new head coach. And so their offense is who's an offensive mind, and he should be. This offense should be more explosive. And hopefully they're not relying as much upon um, their running back and in Cook because the guy seems to get injured a little too often for my like Dalvin Cook. That is, even though I am a big fan of his. But listen, you got some great wide receivers out there. I want to see the team put up even more points. And Minnesota's a pretty well-rounded team. And Green Bay Packers, man, it's funny they don't have the wide receiving core anymore, but they've been building up that defense. They've been building up the defensive side of the ball, and you still have Aaron Rodgers, and you can never count out any team, any Packers team that is Aaron Rodgers. So Minnesota, uh, they are the better team on paper, and we'll get to the picks in a little bit. They are the better team on paper, but man, you can never count out Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Kansas City and Arizona. This is a great matchup here, and I think this is another potential Super Bowl preview here. I don't think it's the Cardinals year this year, but remember what the Cardinals did last year. Don't forget, everyone's forgetting about the Cardinals. Arizona, they started off. They were the last team to be undefeated last year. Where did they win like their first 7 or 8 or 10 games? They were kicking the crap out of everyone, including the Rams last year, up until like week 10, I think it was. And then just the wheels came off. But you know what? this is kind of Arizona is a young team with a young quarterback. Learning how to win consistently throughout a 17 game schedule is something you actually learn. It takes time. It's a hump you have to get over. And I think that's what Arizona's problem was last year, because they are a very talented team and they're a very well coached team. And Kyler Murray is a hell of a quarterback. Mm, But Kansas City, I'm excited to see what they do. They don't have Tyreek Hill, but they still have Kelsey. They drafted Sky Moore, who I'm very, very high on this year. I love Sky Moore, and you still have obviously Patrick Mahomes, and uh, and Kansas City is another team like the Packers that has really been building up the defensive side of the ball for the past few years. So Kansas City is going to be interesting. But I'm really excited about this game, Kansas City, Arizona. I'm really excited about that game, and then Raiders at the Chargers. Man, this is going to be that is the best division by far in the NFL this year, and the Raiders and the Chargers are two stacked teams, well-rounded teams. The Raiders obviously got Devontae Adams as a they traded for him this year, one of the top wide receivers in the game. Uh, that is the Raiders did. The Chargers, they've got Herbert. They've got so much talent on their own. And they got a running back that I love, Isaiah Spiller, but I guess people aren't expecting too much from him this year. But man, Los Angeles is a stacked team. They've got a very good defense as well. Raiders have a good defense, and they've got a stacked offense. This is going to be a great game. Not too much to add there, but anyway, I got to get through the rest of these games. This episode's going on for a long time. Buccaneers at Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys, man, they've taken a lot of blows. Amari Cooper, they don't have a true wide receiver one now that Amari Cooper's gone. And I believe Gallup may be injured as well. Do keep your eyes on Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver they took in the third or fourth round this year. He was having, I think, a very good preseason and camp this summer, and he turned a lot of eyes. And I think he may wind up being a player for them this year. He may wind up actually being an important factor for the Cowboys this year, even though he's a rookie. Jalen Tolbert. Don't forget the name. He may wind up being fantasy relevant. Also, I'm a big believer in Dalton Schultz. I took Dalton Schultz wherever I could in every single fantasy draft that I was, because I wasn't taking a tight end too high. I wasn't taking Kelsey. I wasn't taking Andrews. I don't do that. But I think I was getting Dalton Schultz like in round like 7 and 8. So I was very happy about that. I'm very high on him because Dallas is another team that's always liked to pass the ball to their tight end. And now they're really going to kind of have to do it even more because they don't have that true wide receiver one. Well, I could be wrong. I'm sorry. CeeDee Lamb. A lot of people are expecting him to be like a legit NFL wide receiver one. I'm not convinced yet that he's gonna ever be that type of wide receiver. I think he can. I think he can. But for me, it's not written in stone. CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb will be a fantasy relevant wide receiver, and I think he's gonna have a good career as a wide receiver. But I'm not convinced yet that CeeDee Lamb is going to be a legit wide receiver one. We'll see. Um, we'll see about that. But Jalen Tolbert is a name I think you want to definitely just keep in the back of your mind. He probably hasn't been drafted in many of your leagues, but you want to just like put a little tickler on the guy there. Just keep an eye on him because you might want to someone who I can see him actually doing pretty well for Dallas this year, at least at some point this season. And if you need to pick someone up, it could be Tolbert. We'll see. Let's see, but they lost their left tackle. But Dallas is another team that's traditionally been like the Packers and the Chiefs, who traditionally been more of a known for the offensive side of the ball, but they've been building up the defense very well over the past years. And Dallas's defense has gotten pretty damn good, headlined by Micah Parsons, who is a stud. This guy's like a generational defensive stud. He is just phenomenal, Micah Parsons. So. Dallas's defense is going to be really good, but they lost the left tackle. They lost some weapons. We'll see what happens with Zeke. Losing the left tackle and the offensive line probably not being as good as it used to be known for. We'll see what happens with Zeke. He might not be the same running back that he used to be. So we'll see what happens with Dallas's offense, but their defense has been getting better and better and better. Denver Broncos at Seattle. This is going to be a bloodbath. Denver is going to kick crap out of Seattle. Two teams going in different directions. Denver is another team, yet another team from the AFC West that is legitimately in the Super Bowl conversation, and would be shocked at all if they are the AFC representative. They are just such a well-rounded team, and they're going against Seattle. It's going to be ugly. This game's going to be really ugly, really fast. Seattle's got Geno West, I believe, is the starting quarterback. Um, yeah, and they have some offensive talent. Rashad Penny, solid, good solid RB1. And I'm excited about Kenneth Walker, who they drafted this year, second or third round. I like him a lot, but he's playing behind Rashad Penny. And then obviously wide receivers, they have Metcalf and Lockett. Other than that, their defense still stinks. I don't think their offensive line has really been improved much. They're in trouble. They're in trouble. And if I were Metcalf or Lockett, I'd probably be looking for a trade, to be honest with you, to get out of there. But anyway, this game's going to get ugly pretty quick. Anyway, let's move on to the picks. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly here because this show's been going on for a long time. Okay, so the week 1 picks. Let me share a screen here. All right, share screen. Let's do this. There we go. I'll go through these picks real quick. Okay, guys, let's do this. I see there are 8 comments. Let me do the picks real quick, and then I'll get to the comments, guys. Okay, so I got the spreads from. Can you see this here? No, you're not seeing this. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right, so I got this spread from DraftKings Sportsbook. That's the spread that I'm working off of. Bills at the Rams. Uh, the Rams are giving two. I'm sorry. No, the Rams are getting 2 points. So the Rams are getting 2 points at home. I am surprised about that. So that's the Bills at the Rams, and the Rams are getting 2 points at home. I'm very surprised about that. I don't get it. I even checked it like 5 times and that's what I saw. The Rams are giving 2 points at home. I'm taking the Rams getting the points. So I'm taking the Rams straight up to win this game in LA. But man, that is a great matchup. Saints at the Falcons. The Falcons are giving 5.5 points. Oh, sorry, I'm misreading that. The Saints at the Falcons. The Falcons are getting 5.5 points at home. I'm taking the Saints giving the points and the Saints straight up. So I'm taking the Saints giving the 5.5 points in Atlanta, and I'm taking the Saints straight up, but I could wind up regretting that. The game is in Atlanta, but I'm going to take the Saints giving the 5.5 points and the Saints straight up. Okay, 49ers at the Bears. The Bears are getting 7 points at home. I'm taking the 49ers giving the points and the 49ers straight up. Okay, you got the Steelers at the Bengals. The Bengals are giving 6.5 points. The Bengals are giving 6.5 points. I'm actually taking the Steelers getting the points in this game. I'm taking the Bengals straight up. I do think the Steelers are gonna cover this spread. Again, the Bengals are the better team, but the Steelers are a tough team. They're a tough team when they're not talentless. The Steelers are not talentless. So I'm going to take the Steelers getting 6.5 points, but I'll take the Bengals straight up. Eagles at the Lions. The Lions are getting 4 points. I'm surprised it's only 4 points. The Lions are getting 4 points. I think it'll be a pretty good game, but I have the Eagles winning by more than 4. So I'm taking the Eagles giving the points, and I'm taking the Eagles straight up. Patriots at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are giving 3.5 points. Uh, I'm taking the Dolphins giving the points and the Dolphins straight up. I have a feeling I'm gonna regret not taking the Patriots getting the points. But I'm going to stick with my original feeling. I'm going to stick with the Dolphins giving the 3.5 points and the Dolphins straight up. Ravens at the Jets. The Jets are getting 7 points. Uh, I am taking the Ravens giving the points and the Ravens straight up. And then we've got the Jaguars at the Commanders. The Commanders are giving 2.5 points. I'm taking the Commanders giving the points and the Commanders straight up. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a blowout, but I think the Commanders will win by more than 2.5 points. So I'm taking the Commanders giving the 2.5 points and the Commanders straight up. Okay, so Browns at the Panthers. I have a feeling, okay, the Panthers are giving 1.5 points. I have a feeling that most people out there actually would probably take the Browns, but I'm taking the Panthers, giving the points and the Panthers straight up. This game's in Carolina. I think the Panthers are a pretty talented team, and they were looking pretty darn good last year before their injuries started catching up with them. So, but I'm going to take the Panthers giving the 1.5 and the Panthers straight up. Colts at the Texans. The Texans are getting 7 points. I'm taking the Colts giving the points and the Colts straight up. Giants at the Titans. Ugh. The Titans are giving 5.5 points. I'm taking the Titans giving the points and the Titans straight up. I'm just hoping the Giants can keep this within a touchdown. So I'm taking the Titans giving the 5.5 points and the Titans straight up. Then we got the Packers at the Vikings. The Vikings are giving a point and a half. I think it's going to be a very close game, and we're only talking a point and a half here. But I'm taking the Packers getting the point and a half, and I'm taking the Vikings straight up. I think it's going to be a 1 point game. I think it's going to be really close. I know the Packers have no proven wide receivers. I realize that they've got new. I think Lazard. I think is expected not to play. I think Lazard is out. I think he's expected to not play this weekend. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the report that I saw. So I'm not even big on Lazard, but at least he's has a proven rapport with Aaron Rodgers. But listen, the Packers also do have a very good running game in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. A very good running game. You cannot discount that. And again, you have Aaron Rodgers. This guy, man, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers win this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But okay, so again, I'm taking the Packers getting the point and a half, and I'm taking the Vikings straight up to win. And then the last four games, we got the Chiefs at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are getting 6 points in Arizona. I'm going to take the Cardinals getting the points, and I'll take the Chiefs straight up. I think this is going to be such a great game to watch. I'm really high in Arizona. I'm really high in Kyler Murray, and but I think especially without DeAndre Hopkins, I think it's going to be tough for Arizona to win. So I will take the Cardinals getting the 6 points, and I'll take the Chiefs, but I'll take the Chiefs straight up. Raiders at the Chargers. The Chargers are giving 3.5 points. I'm going to take the Raiders getting the points, and I'll take the Chargers straight up. So again, the Chargers are giving 3.5 points. I'm going to take the Raiders getting the points, but the Chargers straight up. Buccaneers at the Cowboys. The Cowboys are getting 2.5 points. I'll take the Buccaneers giving the points, and I'll take the Buccaneers straight up. But I'll tell you, man, I'm really scared about Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. I'm a big fan of his. I really admire him a lot. And I was excited to hear when he was coming back that he was coming back this year because it just didn't feel right that Tom Brady wasn't in the NFL anymore. So I was excited to hear that he came back. Now I think it was a big mistake because I think he really pissed off his wife. And I understand. You know what? He's got a few kids. He's 44 years old. If Giselle wants, says it's time to hang it up, maybe it's time to hang it up, Tom. Maybe it's time to hang it up. But he can't do it now because he did commit to the team that he'd be there this year. I don't know if his head's going to be in it. I don't know if Brady's head is going to be in this game. Um, so, and again, the Cowboys' defense has really improved a lot. But you know what? I got to go with the Buccaneers. I got to go with Brady, that really talented wide receiving core, Leonard Fournette, Rashad White, their rookie running back. I'm eager to see what he does. The Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are going to make it a good competitive game. I think they really will. But I'm going to go. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with the Buccaneers giving the 2.5 points and the Buccaneers straight up. I think the Buccaneers will win by at least a field goal. Broncos at the Seahawks. So the Seahawks are getting 6.5 points. I am going with the Broncos giving the points, and I'm going with the Broncos straight up. I don't think this game is going to be close at all. The Broncos. I'm taking the Broncos again. I'm taking the Broncos giving 6.5 points, and I'm taking the Broncos straight up. That game is going to be a bloodbath for Seattle. Anyway, guys, I'm going to check out of here, but real quick, let me go through the comments real quick. Jerry. Let's see. Jerry says regarding the Jaguars with the new and improved weapons, should take this Jags, but I think Wentz will play better than most. Think I don't trust. You know what? He doesn't trust Gibson. Jerry, I don't trust Gibson at all. I can't stand Gibson. I believe I believe Brian Robinson is actually considered healthy. I could be wrong, but Jerry, check this out. I think Brian Robinson, the rookie running back, who I actually really liked a lot coming out of the draft, rookie running back out of Alabama, the guy who shot a few times in the lower part of his body like a week ago. I think I saw before that he's been marked healthy. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I misread that, but I don't trust Antonio Gibson for shit. Excuse my language. I shouldn't say that. It's supposed to be a family show, but I can't stand Antonio Gibson for fantasy purposes. Nothing personal, Antonio. Nothing personal, but I can't stand Gibson. I stayed away from him. I wouldn't draft him at all unless you're talking like round 12 or something like that. But anyway, the Jags, yeah, new and improved weapons. I'm excited about Jacksonville. I think they got the right head coach for that team, and I'm a big believer in Trevor Lawrence. I'm really excited to see how Jacksonville develops this year. But I think Wentz, he's going to really help Washington out a lot. He's not taking them to the Super Bowl, but I think he's probably going to take them to. I think Wentz is probably going to probably take Washington to the playoffs this year. I think they'll have a respectable record, like 10-7 or something like that. Panthers could win this. CMC is healthy and Baker plays decent. I agree, Jerry. I think Carolina is going to win. Now, I was saying that before. I was saying that Carolina, they had a really good start to the season last year, and then injuries caught up. They got injured, and it just derailed their season. It was also the first four games. I think they started off 4-0. The Panthers, and everyone was touting them. Everyone was talking about Sam Darnold and the Panthers. They look awesome, and they were beating up. As far as I recall, they were beating up on teams that weren't that good last year in the first four games. So, but still, they were winning the games, and they did look pretty good. And Carolina's been they've been building a pretty damn good defense and a good secondary. They got J.C. Horn, they have Jeremy Chin. They've been building a good defense. Carolina, I'm really impressed. And but I do, I actually think Carolina is going to win this game. Yeah, Jerry says Colts easy. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And I'm rooting for Houston to have a good showing because I felt really bad what happened a few years ago when that team got, blown up. That when they got blown up. And so I am rooting for Houston to put on a good show, but Colts easy. I'm with you, Jerry. Giants win. Tennessee struggles this year. Whoa, Jerry, man, I pray to God you're right. I pray to God you're right, Jerry. I really do. I really do. I really do. I don't think Giants haven't won the first game of the year, I think, since 2016. And oh man, that would be so good. But props to Tennessee. They're a tough team. I like the way that team has been built. Tennessee. They remind me of the Baltimore Ravens, just a tough physical team. But Jerry, I hope you're right. I hope you're not just saying that to be nice to me because I'm a big time Giants fan. But I love it, Jerry. I love it. I love it. If Giants doesn't show something this year, they could blow it up and start over during this offseason. Jerry, it's being blown up regardless anyway. I think the release of Blake Martinez is indicative of that. That's the final. I mean, there are already signs of that anyway. I think it's indicative that the Giants are going to be blown up after this year anyway. And you're going to see. I don't be surprised if Saquon. Don't be surprised at all if Saquon actually does have like a rookie year like his rookie year, he has that type of performance where he's just outstanding, and he's on pace for like 2,000 all-purpose yards, like he was his rookie year. Don't be surprised if Saquon is traded sometime before the trade deadline this year. They're just going to. I think the new GM Joe Shane just wants to get him out there. He's fully healthy, and they want to boost up his trade value. And I think they're going to trade him. And whatever, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to want to sign him to a long-term contract. I don't think they're going to want to spend that much money on him, which personally I think is a mistake because I don't see Barkley if he's actually healthy and if he's playing like rookie Barkley, I don't see him as just as a running back. I think it's like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. He's a weapon playing out of the running back position. He's not a Josh Jacobs, just a running back. He's more of a weapon. He can be deployed, and so he helps in the receiving game a lot too. And so I'd like to see them keep him, but if he does have a rookie type year again, what's his price tag going to be? I don't see this new front office keeping him. So if Saquon is rocking the world, if he's rocking this everyone's world, for the first 6 games, and they come up to the trade deadline, I think he's going to be traded because I think this team is in full on rebuild mode. I do. Vikings to win that division. Jerry, it's not a bad pick, man. I mean, it's got to be between. Certainly, it's not going to be the Lions, even though I do want to see the Lions do well. The Lions aren't going to win, and the Bears aren't going to win. So it's between the Vikings and the Packers. So I'll tell you, man, I can never. I'm going to pick the Packers to win the division. Somehow they're going to do it. The defense is just going to be really dominant. I mean, the Packers have been building a very good defense. Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers just makes it work, man. He just makes it work. He's got that magic, like Tom Brady. He just makes it work, man. I'm still gonna stick. I think I went with the Vikings to win the game, but I gotta say I'm gonna stick with the Packers to win the division. It's Aaron Rodgers. It's Aaron Rodgers. Chiefs Juju with a bounce back. Yeah, I forgot they have Juju. With the bounce back year problem is Chiefs can't control the clock. Is they desperately need a reliable running back. I'm with you. Most people don't seem to really care about a running back for Kansas City. I do. And I'm not into Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm done with the guy. I'm out on him. I think I've seen enough where I don't believe in that guy at all. But they do have Pacheco. Is that his name? It's someone that a running back that a lot of people are talking up a lot. I could see the Chiefs trading for Saquon Barkley if Saquon has a good first 5 6 games. I could see Kansas City trading for him try to get back to the Super Bowl, and he would be phenomenal. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley, holy cow. And I could see them making a trade. If Saquon plays really well, if he's fully back healthy and he plays really well like he did his rookie year, I could see Kansas City making a trade for Saquon. And that would be a really cool matchup. I'd be really happy for Saquon. Um, I don't want to see his career destroyed on my Giants. I really don't. Just like OBJ's was really. Um, Godwin to have more fantasy points than Evans. I wouldn't be surprised, Jerry. I wouldn't be surprised. I got Godwin in a few drafts. I actually got Evans in a few drafts as well, and I'm really high on both those guys. But I'm with you. I like Godwin. I really like Godwin. I like Godwin more than Evans. But yeah, they're both really good. They're both really good. But I'm with you. I think Godwin will have more fantasy points than Evans, Jerry. I'm with you, man. All right, guys. Hey, listen, that's a wrap. Before I go, just another friendly reminder. Here's all the Twitter handles for me and most of my teammates here at Toss the Titles. I'm probably missing like three or four guys. I haven't updated this thing in a few months. We are always adding new guys, and there have been a few people who have left, but we're always adding new guys. And this is like the Twitter handle. So if you could follow all of us, I'd really appreciate it. And please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, give us that 5-star Apple review. Why? Because we deserve it. Anyway, I'm out of here. This is Joe. Enjoy the first week of the NFL season. It is here. I'm really looking forward to it. Even though my team stinks, I am so looking forward to some NFL football. I'll catch you guys next week. One final comment. Let me check it out. Jerry, you're the man. Thanks for being here for the whole show, man. I really, loved having you in the chat. Come by next weekend. I should say next Wednesday, 8 p.m. He says, thanks for a great show. See you next time. I'll see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Jerry, who's your team anyway? What team do you follow before you go? What NFL team do you follow? Just curious. I know Chris's videos is he's a big time Bears fan. I'm a Giants fan myself. Just want to see if you're still there, what team do you root for? Oh, good. You're probably gone. Anyway, Jerry, if you're still there, I'll see you next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Take care, all. Have a good night.